this budget to see, is the city overspending? Is it underspending? Is it meeting its target? What's the deal? And I think I'm playing around with and starting to develop and use this data, right? So you can click on here and you can explore these. So if you click these links, it takes you to like, let's go to operating, for example. It takes you to the story where it makes kind of graphs, right? And it's okay. Right, for the average Joe or average Jane user, it's fine. But I really want to point to, I'm speaking more to like the devs and the data geeks of here. We can actually find the actual data which lives in these data sets. So if you go to these, again, these links and click on these open data sets. So for example, this one takes you to the open budget expense filtered. And this is, again, kind of confusing again too. So you can see the data. You can go in here to actions, right? So you can you can click this actions button and, you can query the data, visualize it, whatever. One thing that I've been playing around with and I'd like to see people use is this API. So again, if we go back to this about page, if we go to actions, so if we go to, I'm off screen. Let me see if I can reconfigure this. Okay, so if we go to this actions and then we click on API, it will bring up this API where we can actually copy this endpoint. So copy to your clipboard. And then if you just open up another web browser, you can actually just paste that JSON right in the browser and hit enter. It's going to pull up this really ugly to the human eye JSON file, right? So just very complex data in JSON format, which that's not why we're kind of using it. So the other thing I wanted to kind of show was there's actually development around Socrata open query language. So SoQL, they call it. Socrata developer documentation. So if you click on the Socrata developers, the thing you're going to be interested here is this API docs. So click on API docs. And there's actually, to get you started, SoQL functions and keyword listings, and then API docs, SoQL queries. And this is information about different type of parameters. So like select, where, order, group, having, limit. So I kind of want to demonstrate how you could use these. And again, it's going to take some practice, but so again, we have the API in a URL. So actually what I can do here is I can write a SoQL statement. So I start that with a question mark, and then we'll use a where statement. So $where equals, and let's say, again, we'll do fiscal year equals 2025, and then enter. And what it actually does is actually filters the information where this is now data just about fiscal year 2025. So again, we're using a where statement, and what we do is we go to this column and we found fiscal year. So you can actually funnel or filter all this data just based on these column names. So the one that I did was just your fiscal year, which it's right. There's 41 columns. There's a lot of columns, and some of them are not that excited. But yeah, this fiscal year number. So you just type fiscal year 2025, and then so you can actually use these where statements. So again, I can do fiscal year 2025. So it's a where, and entity equals parentheses city, and now you're just right. And so I kind of just know these just based on using it, but you can actually filter this data and return real-time information. So right now we're just pulling data that is from the city's budget data set where the fiscal year is 2020-25 and the entity is city, because there's some other entities in this data set like the sewer authority and bureau, which if you're interested in that type of data, you could use that. So, and also we can do, and where the fund group equals general fund, all caps, and enter. And again, this is now returning data where the fiscal year is 2025, the entity is the city, and the fund group is the general fund. So right now we're filtering the data, but we can also use what's a query select statement. So we can actually go in here and we can do, so we append an and, $select equals, and let's do segment 2, which I think is right. So now it returns, essentially segment 2 is the way that the city groups like the departments. So right now, using the where and the select, now we're returning, right, this isn't very helpful, but what we can do here is we can use a sum. So we can do sum, parentheses, original budget, and it's invalid. So it's invalid because we're selecting the segment 2 and then the sum, but the problem is that it's returning all these. You can't return a sum for all these individuals. I mean, if you just did segment 2 and original budget, that would return individual for these lines, but we're trying to summarize this information. So, so what you need to do is if you wanted to use like the sum, you need to use like a group function. So let's kind of type in sum of the original budget, right? That's going to be a SoQL error. But then if we just use a group function, so original budget, let's append and $group equals, as long as we group it on something we've selected, so this segment 2. So if I group it on equals segment 2, hit enter. Now it's going to return actual summarized information about each of these departments. And then, yeah, so it's just a way that we can actually in real time, like select really specific information. So if you're a database user and you've used SQL, which is SQL, something query language, escaping me. But yeah, it's very similar. Using select where statements. There's really more even complex stuff. I mean, some of the Socrata documentation, which I encourage people to explore, this Socrata developers, there's all sorts of really advanced things you can do, like even this API docs, some of these SoQL queries. There's somewhere you can actually do, let's see, data transform functions. I mean, there's just all sorts of really specific things you can do. I mean, you can extract days of week. So really there's just so much potential in this. And there's even some geographic where you can pick like specific points, so lat long points, and then there's things where you can draw a circle and select. I mean, if you're using a geographic data set like crime data, so there's just lots of potential that the open data portal could be used for. I think it's increasing general awareness of it, and also it does take some practice and a little technical expertise. And but I just love to see it, and it's something I'm going to be playing around with more. Is especially. So again, back to this API that I did. So let's say we select the segment 2 code. That's a problem. But yeah, I just think that's a good example of it's, very brief, but sorry, the pressure got to me there where the query rang out. But yeah, just lots of potential to actually be able to query real-time information. So example, we can return this. This is sum of original budget, and say we also want to select the sum of the actual. The parenthesis. And that's the thing with, coding and also computer. This parenthesis was going the wrong direction, so it's you again, and then it works. And then again, you see this where it's actually returning each of the departments, the sum of the original budget, and then the sum of how much they've actually spent. So again, we could use this data to actually in real time track what each department is spending. So just a tool, and I know it's really technical, so I'm speaking to a very niche audience, but if there is one other person out there that likes writing SoQL queries to the Open Data Portal, send me a DM on Twitter because I'm interested in speaking with you and figuring out how we can actually use this. I would love to see people coming to the council, right? It's very clear. And yeah, I've been using, right? It's very clear to me that City Hall in Buffalo is closed source, right? So I'm very interested in building an open source Buffalo. How do we actually open up City Hall? Could we use the Open Data Portal, amongst other things, to actually have people more knowledgeable than the council members, right? So even the council members, I don't know how much data or if they're using data, right? But it's closed source. We don't know. There's no real public input on the processes. But I think the Open Data Portal, yeah, I just think it's an interesting tool that's out there that's really lightly used. And as my former supervisor and the chief innovation officer told me, the open data marketing campaign is over. The PR campaign is over. So I'm very interested in maybe how do we use this data to actually, how do you get the actual city using their own data? Because that's something I know from working in City Hall is that they don't use really any data. So yeah, that's a little overview of the Open Data Portal API. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you have any questions, because I think it would be really cool to collaborate, and I'll be sharing in future videos some actual tools because I'm very interested in actually using this data to not just do machine readable stuff, but actually like visualize it and make it so that layman or a non-technical person can look at that data and understand it and find it useful. So let me know if you use open data or how you'd like to see it, because I'm definitely interested in helping explain it to people and helping use it and helping data be used to help our city not go off a financial cliff what it's about to go down to.